Hello and welcome to Wrestling at Random. I'm Jeremy Deemer.
And I am Adam Summers. You are here in the bonus feed where they just got a little bit crazy. They get a little bit weird. They get a little bit different. They always seemingly get intentionalized. And I can say, and we've said this a few times over the course of the years of this podcast, we've said about a show, this is the most unique show we've done yet. This is the most off the wall, off the beaten path show we've done. I feel like today, Jeremy, is another one of those times. This is not a wrestling show. This is not a wrestling documentary. This is not a curated list. We can't point to a specific promotion that this emanates from. Patron Jerry Lynn Fan chose a movie for us to watch. You told me that we were going to watch a movie, and I said, oh my God, I don't like movies. Yes, that's true. I am the one person in the world who hates movies for the most part. I have a mental block where I can sit and watch 10 hours of pro wrestling consecutively. I can watch 3 hockey games in a row. I can, even if forced to, sit and enjoy 5 or 6 episodes of a TV show in a row. It'll never be my choice, but if someone says, hey, let's watch, and I watch, I enjoy it. Getting myself to sit down and watch a 90-minute movie, much less the modern 3-hour movie, it feels like torture. I do sometimes enjoy it on the back end, but getting myself to sit down and do it, it is difficult. So, Jerry Lynn Fan, you have achieved something few have achieved. You've gotten me to watch a movie.
Patron Jerry Lynn Fan achieved something that I did not know, and I did not know that Adam did not like movies. So I learned something new doing this podcast, and we're going to talk about a movie that I enjoyed, especially when it came out as a child. We'll talk a little bit about, kind of my thoughts on it, your thoughts on it. We'll get into it. The movie we're talking about is Body Slam from 1986.
By the way, if you're searching for this on Amazon Prime or Tubi, make sure you do Body Space Slam.
2 words.
I looked up Body Slam, 1 word, and there was some Body Slam Banana 2015 movie. I'm like, this can't be what was chosen for us to watch. And then I finally figured it out.
Oh, I knew exactly what this was and sent you the link and said it's Body Slam. Like this is. We will talk about.
I had heard of this, but I knew nothing about the content or the context whatsoever.
This film is directed by Hal Needham. He was one of the top stuntmen of the 1960s. And here he directs this film. He also was the director of Smokey and the Bandit and the Cannonball Run movies. So he's a legit director.
Wow. And he allowed his name to be listed on this movie.
The movie was written by Shel Lighton and Steve Burko. Shel Lighton has 2 writing credits. This movie and 2 episodes of the 60s TV show I've never heard of called Death Valley Days.
Maybe this is where the Death Valley Driver came from. Maybe Steve Burko? Is that the name?
This is Shel Lighton. I'm about to talk about Steve Burko. Steve Burko, he wrote this movie and 1 episode of All My Children, the soap opera. And that's it.
Wow. Go out on top, I guess.
So I was surprised. Usually I look at the writing credits and there's more than just this. We'll get into a little bit of the story in just a minute. First, I want to talk about the stars of this movie. The main character is played by an actor named Dirk Benedict, who he plays Harry Smilac in this movie, but he's best known for being on the A-Team. He was face on the A-Team.
So he have a crossover here with Mr. T, even though Mr. T is not in the movie?
This is big time in the era of the A-Team being a huge TV show, Face being a huge star on the A-Team, and of course Mr. T wrestling in 85, 86. Here we are in 1986.
I've never
this film.
seen this man in my life, which will be a theme for everyone not wrestling related on the show. I have no idea who any of these people are. And by the way, all the names, the real names of the people you've said so far, sound like they come from the NXT name generator.
Yes, and we will get to some of the other stars of the film as we recap the scenes. I will talk a little bit about some of the other stars, but the other main star besides Dirk Benedict is, of course, Rowdy Roddy Piper.
Yes.
He plays Quick Rick Roberts, a pro wrestler, and he's best known, of course, for his film appearances in Hell Comes to Frogtown, and, of course, the cult classic They Live. Adam, did you ever see They Live?
It's a common theme in my life when I tell people that I don't watch movies and I don't particularly like movies. They will still ask me if I've seen said movie, and then they will be shocked. They'll ask me, have I seen The Godfather? Have I seen whatever? And I'm like, no, they're like, I can't believe it. I'm like, you know me. I just told you I don't watch movies. So no, I'm aware of They Live. I've like seen stills of it. I know that Hell Comes to Frogtown exists. I have no idea what it is. But no, I've never seen either of those films.
If you haven't seen They Live, and I'm not talking to Adam because he doesn't like movies, but I'm talking to the listening public here. If you have not seen They Live, stop what you're doing. Go watch this movie. It was tremendous. Now, it was
You're trying to
tremendous.
give me anxiety by telling me to stop what I'm doing and watch a movie right now.
When it came out in 1987, this film was fantastic, and I loved it as a kid. Now, does it hold up? I don't know. I haven't seen it since I was a child. So I am going to watch this Halloween season. I plan to watch They Live with my child, who is 12 years old. So we will be watching They Live, and Adam, I'll let you know if it holds up and if you should still watch it.
You let me know. I'm sure if I live 3 or 4 more lifetimes, I'll maybe get around to it.
So I mentioned that the writers of this film only had really this as their only movie writing credit. Hal Needham, the director, he had arguments with a pair of lawyers. These lawyers produced and wrote this film. They actually changed the script. And that's how they ended up getting the writing credits for this.
Wait, so the people you just mentioned earlier that have just a couple writing credits, they're lawyers?
They're lawyers. That is correct.
And they changed the script. Why?
They changed. They wanted to make changes to the script. They were producers of the film as well. They made changes to the script, so much so that Hal Needham, the director, was very upset about this. In an interview with Canadian Online Explorer, Dirk Benedict, the star of our film, recounts positive experiences working on the film. However, both he and director Hal Needham clashed with the 2 lawyers credited with writing and producing the film over changes to the script and Needham's creative choices. At one point, Benedict had a physical altercation with one of the writer-producers. These conflicts led to lawsuits being filed, which caused the film to miss the entire summer movie season. As a result, the film was never theatrically released and was instead released direct to video. So it was because of infighting and lawsuits that this film never made it to the theaters. It went straight to video, so you could get it at your video store. And eventually, as HBO became a thing and it was looking for movies, it went straight to a lot of the direct-to-video library and catalog, and this was on there, and this was on constant rotation. So I saw this movie because I've mentioned on this podcast before, I think with some of the Coliseum videotapes we've reviewed here on the bonus feed, that I would go to the corner video store. As a kid, I'd get to walk down there, go to the video store, and I would go to the wrestling section and rent any piece of content that hit the wrestling section. Well, folks, this was a movie, and it was about wrestling. worlds colliding because I was renting movies and I'm renting every wrestling tape. I can rent one
Save some
that's
money and just get one.
it's hitting both of these things. Yes, please. And so I rented Body Slam, watched it, and then whenever it would come on HBO, no matter what part of the movie it was in, I'd be turning on I'd flip on the channel, I would get to it. I'm sitting down, I'm finishing that film. So I've watched this movie a few times as a child, but I'd say, I'd say never. I had no recollection of the plot. I had no recollection of a lot of the high points of the film. I knew who was in it. I remembered that, but I didn't remember a lot of the plot points. So we will go through that. But I did have a lot of memories flooding back while firing this up. So I'm glad that Jerry Lynn Fan helped me take a nostalgia trip down memory lane here. Overall, did you like the film?
I was amused by it. Again, with the caveat, it's a movie. I was amused by it. The wrestling scenes were funny. I always laugh when you see wrestling shot in a movie, like how they direct the crowds to act, whether it's in a movie or a TV show, or even something like Lucha Underground, which had, fake fans. It's always funny when the fans are just going crazy the whole time, no matter what's going on. I mean, again, I'm far from a movie expert, but I feel like this stretches the bounds of what you could call a feature film. It's not great, but it's fun, and I guess that's the idea behind it. Like, I don't think watching this, my takeaway was not that they set out to make a great movie and failed. My takeaway was they set out to make a campy, bad, fun movie with wrestling in it, and if that was the idea, they largely succeeded.
Yeah, I think the main theme was, let's hit all of the high spots that are in 80s movies in 1986, right?
Oh, okay. So I have no idea what that would be. So
yeah, so there's a formula here, and they were going to hit the formula. So someone's down on their luck. They have a redemption story. They find love along the way, and we have a happy ending. And of course, we end with an 80s freeze frame. And so that is so they really steered into a lot of the what became tropes of the 80s, and already by the mid 80s were already 80s movie tropes from that genre, that time period. It hit all the high spots. So it succeeded in what it attempted to do, and that was to be what was popular in 80s genres.
So it's a derivative 80s comedy type of movie with wrestling thrown in because wrestling was hot at the time. The other thing that just I thought was interesting is, like, so they have Roddy Piper, who's one of the biggest stars in the WWF at this time, but this isn't in any way, shape, or form a WWF film. I know this obviously predates by a decade, the idea of WWF films, but when you just think of modern day WWE and how closed off it is in terms of like the stars and everything they do is very WWE, like seeing Roddy Piper here just doing his own thing in this movie when he's at the height of his popularity as a megastar in pro wrestling, I found interesting.
Yeah, and he would leave the WWF a year later after this movie came out to pursue his career in acting. So, and boy, like, he's in here with there's real professional actors in this film. Yes. And Piper does a really good job of acting and performing in this movie, like especially compared to some of the other wrestlers that were expected to act.
Yeah, whether it be in this movie or in, whether I've seen Hulk Hogan act before. I've seen a few wrestlers in movies or TV shows, and he seems much more well suited to that than most. The other thing that is interesting is that you might think, well, Roddy Piper in a movie playing a pro wrestler, so he's just going to be playing Roddy Piper. Instead, he's this like in the ring, he's basically wrestling exactly like Roddy Piper, but outside of the ring in his character, he's the polar opposite of what the Roddy Piper character was. The Roddy Piper character was a wild man when he was a heel. He was just a detestable human being, smart mouth, the whole deal. Whereas here, he's a wholesome, earnest, genuine guy who the two things he loves are wrestling and his niece, who he appears to be raising. They don't really get into detail on what the situation is, but he basically is raising his little niece as his daughter. And that's what he loves. And he's just this like kind of chill dude. It's a very different presentation of Roddy Piper as, like you said, quick Rick Roberts.
Another big part of the movie, besides the wrestling, is the music. You mentioned wrestling was very popular at this time. This is coming off the heels of the rock and wrestling connection here. We'll
get into it in the movie itself. It is basically co-opting that as the main story of the whole deal.
So did the music leave any impression on you as we went along?
Yeah, bad would be the impression that left on me. I thought it was terrible. It was, you talk about derivative 80s music. There's one song in particular.
There will be some playing underneath as we talk through the movie.
There's one in particular that as we go through, I'll have in my notes, but just the one song that just goes on and on and on with push. Yes. I know you can do it, baby. Push. I was not aware if I didn't understand if this was reaching a goal, having sex, delivering a child. This was not good.
Yeah, they we will talk a little bit more in detail about so the music is basically a lot of 80s synthesizer of the times background music, and then the band Kick.
The best way I would describe the music is if you watch old territory wrestling on the WWE network, it basically is like the songs that they would dub over during a music video that actually had a real famous song in the original broadcast of a wrestling show. That was the vibe I got.
Yeah, and Kick was the fake band that performed the Push song you talked about.
Oh, so they're a real band? They were
No. Okay. They're a fake band for this movie, but that is one of the songs written for this fake band to play in this movie. Not a real song. Let's dive into the film. We're going to go through some of the scenes. We'll stop and interject with our and now this is going to be riddled with spoilers. So if you're planning on watching Body Slam and don't want to be spoiled, come back after you've seen the film.
So basically what you're telling people is to stop right now and watch 2 movies.
Do not watch 2 movies under no circumstance.
And watch They Live and then come back and listen. I need to take a CBD right now. Fast acting.
So the movie starts, we're in Los Angeles. We see Dirk Benedict as M. Harry Smilak. He's getting his fancy sports car repossessed. He's talking to his lawyer about getting evicted. He's getting subpoenaed. He's down on his luck. And he's the kind of guy who takes shortcuts. He's trying to take the easy way out. And he eventually goes and meets... we also hear about... he took out a Korean savings and loan that he ended up fighting in court, and his lawyer got him out of having to pay back. That will come into play as a running through line.
Got him out of having to pay it back. They did get my attention early in the movie where there's the scene where Harry goes and visits some car salesman and basically hustles him.
Do you know who this car salesman is?
I have no idea who the car salesman was, but they got my attention because this was the mid-'80s, and he was offering up 4 Bruce Springsteen tickets. as part of the deal. And I'm like, I'll time travel back to 1985 and see the Born in the USA tour that I missed as a young Bruce Springsteen fan.
Yes, the car dealer, that's actor John Aston, who is best known as being Gomez Addams in the old Addams Family TV show.
Oh, really? I do remember watching old Addams Family shows as a child.
He was Gomez Addams.
No idea that that's who that was, shockingly.
So yeah, he cons him into getting this car with Springsteen tickets, and the tickets were actually for the Jewish yodeling festival, not really the Springsteen concert. He's got this car, and he's back at his house, and it's the first time we're introduced to a character called Mr. Kim, and he's from the Korean Savings and Loan. He wants the money that is owed, and he's backed by his muscle, the two guys that are with him, Afa and Sika of the Wild Samoans.
Yes, so we get our first legitimate pro wrestler appearances I almost said on this show, in this movie. The other thing to note, we see with this Kim fellow and then other stuff throughout this, you talked about being a product of the 80s. Well, in the 80s, most of the jokes were xenophobic or homophobic, or
Correct,
sometimes
yes.
both. And that is a through line throughout, as well as in the 80s, much of life was about ridiculing little people. And so the movie is filled with that as well. It's definitely a little jarring.
Afa and Sika are recurring characters as the heavies with Mr. Kim. So anytime you see him, you see them. But they do not speak. They are just physically acting in the movie. They end up pulling the door off the car here, and they start just physically pulling the car apart into pieces.
Yeah, that is really the only thing they do in this movie, is stand there behind Kim and then rip cars apart. That happens 3 or 4 times throughout the film.
Smilax shows up to meet with Tom McMillan. He interrupts a meeting that was going on between McMillan and Quick Rick Roberts. This is our first time seeing Rowdy Roddy Piper here. He's talking to the promoter, and they're having an argument. Smilax keeps interrupting, and then he starts negotiating for Roberts on his behalf. Outside, Roberts and Smilax talk. Roberts asks Smilax to be his manager, and Smilax is he manages rock and roll bands. He's a music manager. He thinks that he must be a musician based on how the negotiation was going upstairs, and so he agrees to do so. And at this time, Lou Morano shows up. He's played by Captain Lou Albano, who is basically playing Captain Lou Albano.
Oh, there's no basically about it. He is Captain Lou Albano playing Captain Lou Morano, and it is the exact same person. What you realize very quick, well, first, the McMillan promoter character is obviously a take on McMahon, Vince McMahon. But what you realize in this scene is that in this movie, pro wrestling is treated as being real.
100% shoot. Yes.
It is as fake could be, but it is treated as being real, which I howled with laughter when I came to that realization, because there's so many points in this movie that are just beyond absurd for that reason.
So Morano he's got a heavy with him, and I don't know who this man is.
It's a man that's supposed to look like Mad Dog Vachon, but I don't know if this is an actual wrestler. The idea behind Lou Morano is that not only is he like the wrestling manager of champions, but he basically, as a manager, controls the entire professional wrestling landscape and has most wrestlers under contract to him.
And when Piper's character is saying that he signed with someone new, Albano has a great line here where he says, "Who'd you sign with? David Wolf?" Made me laugh because that's Cyndi Lauper's manager, who we saw Piper punch David Wolf and had a physical he had a physical confrontation with Cyndi Lauper.
That's good stuff.
That one made me laugh. He ends up breaking Smilax's cigar, and Roberts punches him out, and he says, This is not how we do it in the music business. And Morano tells him he's not going to last in pro wrestling. And this is when Smilak figures out what's going on here.
Yes, he is not prepared for the world of pro wrestling. We then, this is when we move to the gym. And we have Roddy Piper working out. He is threatened by the Barbarian and some other guy who is neither Warlord nor Ming. They are apparently Axe and Hammer the Cannibals, and they threaten Roddy Piper, Quick Rick Roberts, for leaving the captain.
Yes. So the guy who is with the Barbarian is Tejo Khan, who was a member of Paul Jones' army at one point. Yeah. He teamed with Pez Whatley in the '87 Crockett Cup.
They may have gotten a sneaky win over the Road Warriors as well. You never know with Pez Whatley.
And so, they're here. They also at the gym were introduced to Tonga Tom, who Roberts wants Smilak to also sign. And you'd know Tonga Tom as the Tonga Kid or Sam Fatu, the Samoan Savage in WCW.
So this is funny. Again, we let the curtain slide a little bit here. If you're listening, you're listening on the bonus feed. You're listening in real time. There will be an episode on the free feed where the Tonga Kid will make an appearance. And it's so weird because this is not like a guy who's on a million shows. We recorded those two shows 24 hours apart. It's just one of those odd synchronicities of doing this crazy little podcast.
So yeah, Roberts is working out. He gets confronted by the Cannibals, and they're mad that he left Captain Lou. And these two are not good actors. The Barbarian and Tejo Khan. Not good actor. Barbarian can barely speak normally, and
this
he
is
has
more than the Barbarian ever spoke in his entire professional wrestling career.
Crazy that he has speaking lines in this movie.
They remind me of when there's a car insurance commercial that has a couple wacky wrestlers throwing somebody around. That's basically the level of acting from these two guys. Thankfully, we go from here to...
So this is where Smilak is having doubts about his... He says, I should have stayed in the music business. He's dealing with these physical confrontations now for the first time.
Which I'm wondering why he's having these doubts, because his failures in the music business are why he was in this terrible financial situation in the first place. So take what you can get, Smilak. As I was saying,
he also had... So we skipped a scene when we got to the gym. It's a very crucial scene.
Oh, boy. There's a crucial scene in this movie?
Yes, because Harry meets with a gubernatorial candidates team that is doing... They're talking about a fundraiser that has not happened. That he's supposed to be setting up the entertainment for the fundraiser, and he has not done this yet. And so he's trying to... tap dance around the fact he hasn't booked anybody yet, and he's immediately distracted by a woman at the pool. This is Candice Vanderwegen, and she's the daughter of the woman who's putting on this fundraiser, and she's played by a young Tanya Roberts, who's best known as being one of Charlie's Angels from the '70s TV show. So
I believe you.
So we've had the introduction of Candice Vanderwegen, as now we get to the scene where we're heading to the LA Memorial Sports Arena.
Yes, you can forgive my excitement to get to some professional wrestling action, such as it is here on this show, in this movie. And we see Piper, Quick Rick Roberts, and is it Tonga Tom? Tonga Tom, the Tonga Kid. They are a tag team. They're wrestling what can only be described as 1989 Continental Masked Jobbers.
It's exactly how I have it in my notes as well.
Wearing all white, including white masks. Harry and the little girl are both at ringside, and I don't mean ringside as far as behind the barricades. They are both in the corner in the manager's position. The sound effects are truly hilarious throughout this movie, particularly in the wrestling action. These jobbers, we talk about Continental 89, they have no idea how to run the ropes, which brought me great joy. We get a double drop kick, 2 drop kicks in stereo, really, and then stereo suplexes by Quick Rick Roberts and Tonga Kid. They get the win. We hear over the PA, the ring announcer says this is their first time teaming, and this match against these jobbers was the main event of this packed Coliseum. Okay.
Yeah, America's newest tag team picks up the win. In the locker room, Smilak is talking to Tonga Tom, and Quick Rick Roberts. He's talking to his new tag team, and he says that he wants them to have new outfits. And I thought the exact same thing. I'm like, you're right, Smilak. You need to have your team wearing matching gear. Love it. We then get a segment where we get there's a talk show, a popular talk show called Ring Talk with Vic Carson.
The most popular show on television is a show called Ring Talk, where Vic Carson, who looks like Drew Carey, stands there and talks about wrestling for an hour in front of a small studio audience. This was the most popular show in all of America in the universe of Body Slam.
Vic Carson is played by Charles Nelson Riley, who is best known for his work as a Tony Award-winning Broadway actor.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
Charles Nelson Riley, it sounds to me like he should be a member of the York Foundation.
No, very famous actor, Charles Nelson Riley. He's probably one of the most famous actors in this entire movie.
The funny thing is, you could be making all of this up, and I would be none the wiser. I mean, I watched the movie, but as far as like who these people are, this could be complete bullshit, and I would have no idea.
This is totally true. I did research in addition to this. So Charles Nelson Riley was in Cannonball Run, which was directed by the same director of this film. And of course, he was a voice actor for just a ton of animated films. And he was on 70s television, you would know him from The Match Game. He was one of the stars of The Match Game on 70s TV. So if you were a kid home sick from school and watching 70s game show reruns, you would have seen a lot of Charles Nelson Riley. And he also would appear on Laugh-In in the 70s as well. So he brings out his guests. The guests on this talk show: Captain Lou Morano, Tim McCluskey, who manages the Little People wrestlers, and then
he is a little person himself.
And you would know him as if you watched UHF, the Weird Al movie UHF. He was the cameraman for the UHF station.
Never seen it.
Harry Smilak was also rounding out the guests. So these are all managers talking wrestling on this wrestling talk show. And Smilak representing the new managers in wrestling. He gets in a confrontation with Morano, of course. And during the commercial, Morano throws Smilak over the top to the outside.
We should also note, just again, sign of the times, the casual homophobia here, as a slur is said to Smilak, and then there are multiple signs in the studio audience, and they all start chanting this slur. My God, the 80s feel like a lot longer ago than they were when you see something like this.
I'm sure it was exactly like that in the wrestling arena as well.
Oh, yeah. It was like that in the
worse.
wrestling arenas when I first started going to shows in the 90s, in the early 90s. Yeah. So I'm sure it was even worse in the 80s.
So Harry pulls up in front of a garage where a band is practicing. And we hear for the first time, we hear them performing the song American Way. And the band is called Kicks. And they're managed by Harry Smilak. And they want to know what gig he's got them booked for. Your thoughts on the introduction of Kicks and the song American Way?
I thought it maybe could have been the B-side to the American Males entrance music. I thought, well, Harry Smilak must not be a great music mogul if these guys are practicing and it appeared to be their mom's garage. I was not overly impressed by Kicks.
So we smash cut to the night of the fundraiser. And he's spending Smilek's spending his time hitting on Candace, and they end up ditching the fundraiser event to go back to his place.
Well, we should also note that he had said, as far as in several of these meetings where he was talking about what the entertainment would be, who he was able to secure, he said he got Frank and Barbara and Julio. So I'll talk about Frank Sinatra, Barbara Streisand, Julio Iglesias, all these big stars, but he only said the first name. And then obviously he did not come through with that. So he had multiple motives for wanting to not be there. One, he was wanting to get with Candace. And two, he did not want to be there when the proverbial shit hit the proverbial fan.
Yes. And instead of any of those names, the entertainment was Kix. This is the gig. So Kix came out full pyro, full hair metal. And we see the next day newspaper headlines, fundraising fiasco, and this was a huge failure, and Harry has to dress as a woman to hide out at the wrestling match to not be discovered by all of the candidates team that are all angry, including the mother of his love interest, Candace.
I also like, as we go back to the wrestling arena, like you said, Harry is in the locker room dressed in drag to not be found out. We go to the ring, and in the ring introductions, we find out that Quick Rick Roberts is from Evanston, Illinois. What is with all these random Chicago suburbs being like on this show, whether it be in wrestling matches or here in this movie? Even
more strange. It was announced as Evanston, Illinois, America's heartland.
Yes.
Which, if you go back, it made me think of our Glow review, episode 1 of season 5, where they had the All-American woman from that show being billed from Skokie, Illinois, yes. Which is a neighboring town to Evanston, which is so weird and funny.
And they're both lovely towns. I spent time in both. I spent a lot of time in Evanston over the last 3 or 4 years, and I enjoy my time, but I don't necessarily think of them as America's heartland. There's not a lot of like corn or wheat or like, I don't know. It's
so bizarre.
It's very strange. There has to be a connection somewhere between the production teams of Glow in the mid 80s and Body Slam.
Chick Hearn is doing the play-by-play for the pro wrestling. You'll know him as the legit play-by-play man for the Los Angeles Lakers for many decades.
Oh yeah, one of the most legendary play-by-play men in the history of quote-unquote modern sports. Jay Johnstone is with him, and the story here is that Quick Rick Roberts and Tonga Tom are scheduled to wrestle the Invaders, who I can only imagine are about as good as that unnamed Continental Jobber team we saw in the previous match. But instead, they have been substituted for, you guessed it, Axe and Hammer, the Cannibals.
The Cannibals start by taking out the ref, and then they attack Tonga Tom with a chain. They're hitting Rick with the chain. Tonga's busted open. Rick is bleeding everywhere. Tonga misses a dive and goes flying over the top rope.
Oh my God, this is terrifying. If there wasn't a crash pad, like I'm sure there was, this would have been like full Mick Foley. This is an absolute decimation. Fatu is bloody on the floor as they're hanging Piper over the top rope with the chain. Or, excuse me, not Fatu, Tonga Tom.
So my takeaway from this was incredible facial expressions by Piper during this beating.
Right? Oh my God. It was very interesting to see how well like Piper's pro wrestling selling worked in the context of a movie and the way this was shot, which had some wrestling camera angles, but a lot of different camera angles. You never know how it's going to translate, but he was phenomenal here.
Yeah, this was just tremendous. They gave Harry an airplane spin and dumped him over the top to the outside as well. Harry's now in a neck brace and crutches, and he gets his car repossessed again while he's visiting Tonga and Rick in the hospital. He's telling the guys, hey, this whole thing happened because the captain outsmarted him. He quits, tells them they need to go get a new manager. Back at Harry's house. Rick is out of the hospital. He's on the mend. He's out of the hospital. He comes to visit Harry.
Yeah, Harry is big sad, sitting there on his deck, looking out into the ocean, contemplating life. And we can tell he's depressed because he has a 5 o'clock shadow. It's like in wrestling in the 80s or early 90s, whenever a babyface grew a beard, you knew that was because he was going to turn heel, and they wanted to have him have that beard right away.
Not only was he unshaven, but he didn't have hair gel in his hair. Which,
that is very true. He's greased up all
the time. When he's confident, Harry, he's greased up. He's got the hair slicked back, and
dressed like he's on a yacht. Here, none of those things are taking place.
No. He wouldn't be able to find a major arena because the captain will keep him out. He's even if he wanted to get back in, he couldn't get in.
The captain has all the buildings booked, apparently. All the major cities, they're all booked. So he is not only a manager of champions, but he is basically a cartel leader, a cartel owner, running the entire pro wrestling business with it under his thumb.
But then Harry gets an idea. And we head to our big meeting with Harry and the band, Kicks. And he's like, I can promote concerts for you. And I can book matches for the wrestlers. And the bus hits the road. We get a musical montage of Rick and Tonga beating teams. This set to your favorite song, Push by Kicks.
And we heard all of this song maybe twice. So that took it down a little bit, but I loved seeing them in all these different buildings doing these fake pro wrestling matches. I love the idea that they did shoots in different buildings, and they probably spent hours, probably a whole day doing this, shooting a match, and then it was all just for little bits and pieces of it to be used in this video. For some reason, I don't know why, I got a huge, no pun intended, kick out of that. That may be my favorite part of the movie.
Harry is having success, having a concert one night and wrestling the next night.
Yeah, so it was rock and wrestling, but it was a 2-night thing. They were not on the same bill to this point.
No, until the San Bernardino Arena has a scheduling issue.
Yes,
so they only have one night available this time.
Yeah, they double booked the arena. There's some like hog show or something. The guy, the building owner, tells some weird joke about killing cats that certainly didn't land with me. But then Harry gets the bright idea that he could do the wrestling matches and the rock music at the same time. One of my issues with this whole thing, this whole rock and wrestling thing, is that, okay, on the wrestling side, I get it. Tonga Tom, Quick Rick Roberts, they're huge stars. They're going for the tag titles. They're big pro wrestling stars. Even more so in the early part of this tour, where it's wrestling one night and music the second night. Are Kicks a popular band at all at the start of this? They're practicing in a garage in this little town. How are they selling these buildings out early? I don't understand.
They are picking up momentum. As you can tell by playing the tunes that get the kids a dancing. You can see them as soon as they start playing. Everybody's dancing it up. We'll get to it later as the rock and wrestling continues here. But he ends up putting the two posters together. So the rock poster and the wrestling poster are combined to make one rock and wrestling poster.
Yeah, he just tapes the one poster over the date of the other, so it's just one date.
Yeah, he's like, hey, it turns out your chocolate fell in my peanut butter and it just works. Who knew? Great news. So the wrestling show, apparently, they are offering $1,000 if someone in the crowd can pin Rick or Tonga.
Yeah, it's $1,000 local challenge, which is accepted by Pee Wee Hutchins, who can only be described as Mike Von Erich, and and his partner, Little Will Hutchins, who basically is a younger-faced Haystacks Calhoun. So just imagine that going up against the Tonga Kid and Roddy Piper here. The ring is sponsored by the World Pair Shoe Stores, which I found amusing. This little San Bernardino Arena is something else. It reminds me actually kind of the Cicero Stadium in suburban Chicago. but with a little scoreboard hanging from the top. And we've got Harry tells the band to start playing. That comes a little later. We've got the pipe organ playing, which is an odd thing already. This feels more like a baseball game to start than a rock and wrestling show.
Yeah, Will is a giant fat guy, and he's just squashing Rick until the band Kicks starts to play, and they drowned out that organ, and then he makes a comeback.
Physically squashing him. He hits an awkward splash on Rick's back and then just lays on him as Rick begs Harry to do something. So Harry runs to the stage and says, "Play something," and that somehow drowns out the pipe organ and cues the comeback for Quick Rick Roberts.
So this rock and wrestling together on the same night, the same bill, is a huge success. We know this because they upgraded from the crappy bus to an RV with graphics. And then the rock and wrestling production gets even better as seen via another wrestling musical montage.
Set to the eponymous song, Body Slam.
Yes, by Debbie Lighton performing the song Body Slam. It plays throughout this another long montage.
I like this bar type place. They're doing the wrestling show in Dallas. That looks like a cool place to see a show.
The band gets renamed from Kicks to just Kick. And a writer from Rolling Stone magazine wants to do a piece on the success of this rock and wrestling.
Herb Brown.
Harry mails postcards to Candace. Candace will not answer his calls.
Harry mails postcards to Candace written by the little niece after he dictates them to her. So Harry, I don't know, say flaw, because I don't think this movie's even meant to be taken that seriously. But the only flaw with this whole redemption story of Harry is that he does he does a few nice things, but he's just a contemptible human being. You left out the part where they're at the hospital after he gets his car repossessed. He basically causes some already injured guy to get killed by a car when his wheelchair rolls into the street, and Harry's just like, oh well, at least he's close to a hospital.
Yeah,
so, he's not the most sympathetic figure here.
No, so Candace, Candace's mom won't, and the housekeeper won't put the calls through. So he's been mailing the postcards instead. Rick asks, "What more do you want? You've taken us to the top." And Harry says he wants the championship. And the wrestler's like, "Hey, man, the captain will never give them a shot. These guys have had the tag team titles for 5 years."
5 years. They're on the Bruno/Roman Reigns plan here.
Harry has an idea on how to convince the captain to give them a tag team title shot. And the way to do that is to go back to the Ring Talk show. Same panel as before.
Same homophobic slurs as before, hurled at Harry Smilek. The
captain calls rock and wrestling, he calls it junk food. He says, too much of it will make you sick. And one match, so he ends up challenging, Smilek challenges him, captain doesn't want to do it, and then they end up negotiating it to a one-match winner-take-all challenge. Smilek leaves the business. If his team loses, the belts, the wrestlers' contracts are all on the line, winner take all.
I'm hyped at this point. I would go to this wrestling show based off of what we see here on Ring Talk.
At Candace's house, Harry pretends to be a flower delivery man to get his way in to apologize. Smash cut to them by the water.
No,
and they
false.
Kiss.
You're leaving out the most confounding thing I've ever seen in a movie. And granted,
the elevator.
I've seen very few of them. What in the world was this? So Harry visits Candace. Her mom is there. He's got this huge bouquet of flowers. And then the mom is going to see them. So they step into some box. And then the box just lifts up into the air. And then we jump cut to Harry's house. What in the world did they step into? What was this?
I am pretty sure it was a dumbwaiter. But it's very large.
English, please.
It's very large to be a dumb. So a dumbwaiter is from the kitchen. You could put something into the box, and then you can rope and pulley system. It will go up to the second floor of the house. So
Sure.
But it was larger. Like 2 human beings got into it, so it's larger than I'm used to for a usual dumbwaiter. But they are very rich. They had Rolls Royces in the 80s. Possibly it was a dumbwaiter. Possibly it was a makeshift tiny elevator. But that's what I believe it is.
I was just wondering if it was a movie that didn't have enough of a budget to have an elevator, so they had to do this. This seemed like rich people stuff. I had no idea what it was.
So, we smash cut and they kiss. So they've made up. So Harry and Candace, they're back together.
Harry also says that if the team wins, he will give his share of the winner's purse to her to help
her mother.
To pay off the debt to the mom.
Yes, exactly. The captain arrives at the arena. It's big match night. This is it. This is the big match.
Well, you forgot to mention the scene earlier on in the movie where the first time Harry tries to bring Candace back to the house and her mom's car gets destroyed by the Wild Samoans in one of the many attempts of Kim to get the money back from Harry Smilax. So that's also part of why
that is correct.
The mom hates Harry. He ruined the event.
Ruined the Rolls Royce.
And her Rolls Royce got pulled apart limb from limb, so to speak, and dumped over an edge of a cliff into the ocean.
That's right. So it's main event time. We're at the arena. The crowds of people filing in. The captain arrives at the arena. He parks in a handicap space. And then Harry arrives to the arena. And he parks and he's walking in, and Mr. Kim is there with the Samoans again. So this would be the third appearance of Kim and the Samoans, both times previously trashing cars. So this time we see them arrive. At the same time, we see Lou making his way to the arena. He's physically shoving children out of the way.
Refusing to sign autographs. He is just being Captain Lou Albano. There was nothing that he needed to change or do differently from a wrestling show or some of those home videos that we've seen from the WWF. He's the exact same guy.
Smilax tells Kim and the Samoans to stay away from his car, and he points to Captain Lou's car. The Samoans then proceed to destroy the car that's actually Captain Lou's. We get, they announce the wrestlers at ringside for this big main event. We've got more wrestlers here.
Yeah, we did. I had no idea any of these men were going to appear. We have announced as the NWA World Heavyweight Champion Ric Flair is a ringside, which was a cool and nice touch. We had Freddie Blassie, Sheik Adnan Al-Kaisi, and then Bruno Sammartino is here. And this will not be the last we see of Bruno throughout the rest of the movie. I would not have pegged Bruno being a part of this project.
No, and I would not have pegged, again, not a WWF, not a Vince McMahon promotion here when you've got Bruno sitting with Flair ringside for this.
Watching Roddy Piper do a match. It's so interesting.
Vic Carson is here to do play-by-play for the match. And the band Kick opens the show with a song in the ring. They're performing in the ring. I'm having flashbacks to Limp Bizkit performing at WrestleMania 19. If you haven't heard my review of that, it's in the free feed. Go over and listen to both parts 1 and 2 of our WrestleMania 19 review in the free feed. But here we have Kick performing in the ring, and even Fat Will Hutchins is there, and he's there dancing. Everyone's dancing it up. Everyone's having a great time, and they play the hit American Way again. And then finally, we go to the back, and finally, Rick and Tonga have matching gear. I've seen them touring the country. They have ignored Harry's request to get matching gear until now. Finally, they've got matching gear. They got matching capes. They're looking good.
They have matching gear, but it still is pretty lame gear. It's just white tights. The capes are cool, but come on, you could give them a little bit better. I guess we should just be happy with the matching gear and leave it at that. The other thing I'll say about this film is that while a lot of things are pretty unbelievable, the thing they do get right, and I can't believe it's something you haven't mentioned so far, is that in all of the wrestling action, we never see a scenario where guys on opposite teams are wearing the same gear or the same color gear. They understood what we talk about often, that you have to make sure you don't have opponents wearing the same gear.
Yes, and here during the song, the Cannibals hit the ring. They interrupt the song American Way. The Barbarian picks up a floor tom and breaks it over his head. They smash the guitars. They're trashing instruments. And someone while the Cannibals are destroying this, the fights start to break out in the crowd.
The brawl breaks out.
And it starts...
instigated by Bruno Sammartino, who is seconds earlier dancing up a storm and then gets mad and starts a fight.
Some guy comes over, touches Bruno's shoulder, and he turns around and punches this guy out, and then the crowd just breaks down and everyone's fighting each other.
If there's anything that I know, it's that Bruno Sammartino loves to dance and will fight if interrupted.
Vic Carson on play-by-play gets taken out by the manager of the little people. Took him out with his cane, and so Chick Hearn is back to do play-by-play again.
Yes, the A-team is back.
And so the match, we clear the ring here. We've settled down the fights in the crowd, and we're ready to have the actual main event here. Rick and Tonga hit the ring, and the match is underway.
Yes, professional wrestling here in this movie. I am back in my wheelhouse. We get a brawl, like you said. It's tornado style. Barbarian throws Piper out to the floor. Lou goes after Quick Rick Roberts. Smilax stops it, but gets knocked down. And we have Candace at ringside dramatically yelling, "Harry!" as if like a group of gangsters have surrounded him or about to shoot him. Security holds her back. Smilax hits a low blow on Lou. Back of the ring, Barbarian with a big clothesline on Tonga Tom. They're in control.
We get some good slow-mo on these clotheslines.
We get slow-mos. We get weird like shots from like you're down on the ring, down on the mat, like you got knocked down. They knock Piper off the apron as well, and we get the classic Southern tag spot of Piper trying to get in the ring to make the save, but the ref holding him back as the Barbarian hits a big press slam.
Yeah, heat on Tonga until the Barbarian off the top misses a headbutt. Rick gets the hot tag. He runs wild. All four men are in.
Well, he gets the hot tag, runs wild, and as he does, we get inspirational synth music and weird camera shots. It feels like this match is reaching a conclusion.
Yes, all four men are in. Both Quick Rick and Tonga Tom hit bulldogs on their opponents at the same time. Stereo bulldogs. We get a belly-to-back suplex by Rick as Tonga comes off the top rope with a drop kick, and Rick gets the pin. They celebrate in the ring. We've got new champions. We have not seen title belts this entire film. Tag team title belts show up, and they're here. Smilax in the ring with them. They've got the belts. They raise the belts, and I am literally saying, come on, give me an 80s freeze frame. Give me the classic 80s freeze frame. And they hit it. 80s freeze frame, and everyone's all excited. And I'm excited on my couch. I'm like, perfect ending. Now, and then sometimes after an 80s freeze frame, you have a little, you can flash forward and say
a little postscript.
A little postscript here, but not here. Credits roll. Film is over. We go out on top here. We
don't tie any of the other loose ends. I wanted to see if Candace's mom would accept the winnings, if that peace offering would help. I was so distracted though, because as this inspirational music gets going and reaches the crescendo, and Quick Rick Roberts and Tonga Tom win, I swear to God, Jeremy, the music is the closest knockoff ever to the classic New Japan Pro Wrestling, World Pro Wrestling music, the classic New Japan theme song. That's what this is. It's Yuji Nagata winning the GHC title in Pro Wrestling Noah, and then doing the wacky Yuji Nagata match post post-title win celebration to the New Japan music. I swear to God, that's basically what this sounds like. It's so weird. What a strange movie. What a strange time it was watching this.
This took me back. I immediately remembered watching a lot of this as a kid, and anytime I can have some comfort food, it was legit a big deal to see pro wrestling in a movie at this time, and I hadn't seen the '70s Wrestler, the Vern Gagne movie, or anything. This was like the first time that wrestling was in a movie.
The El Santo movies, or anything like that. I also think I uncovered another reason why this movie still has enduring resonance for you. So as a kid, it was like, oh, it's a movie, it's wrestling. And then what is Harry Smilak? Harry Smilak is what you were going to school for. He's a music manager.
Music manager, yes. The music business tie-in absolutely scratches that itch. There's a lot of parallels between young Jeremy Deemer and Harry Smilak, but this was a fun trip down memory lane for me. Favorite thing in this movie for you, Adam?
Without a doubt, it's Roddy Piper's performance in the
100%.
movie.
That's
Roddy Piper was tremendous. He's obviously great in the pro wrestling scenes because he's a pro wrestler, but you could see why, at least by the standards of other pro wrestlers, why he was able to have a bit more of a successful run in movies for a few years, at least, because he did have some ability at doing this.
Honorable mention for some of the wacky cameos in here too. I loved when Chick Hearn was your play-by-play guy, and
the Samoans ripping cars apart.
Yeah,
honorable mention for me is the front row at ringside with all the pro wrestling stars.
That's the pro wrestling stars that they got to do cameos as well. Worst thing in the movie for you? What was what thing did you dislike the most about the movie?
Again, like, it's the easiest and the correct answer to say the some of the jokes that were just, not my wheelhouse, but again, it's the mid 80s. Outside of that, that it was a movie, I guess would be the main thing. If I had to pick just the ridiculousness of the sound effects during the wrestling stuff, and the times where like Piper would be selling, or when Morano and Smilak were going at it on the floor outside, and they had this horrible dubbed in, not their voices, yelling or gurgling, selling, that just, it's like, you've got Roddy Piper, just let him do the voice of that. Again, it was just a wacky movie.
For me, it was just when they did the fundraiser and Kix comes out to play, and like they didn't open with American Way, which is obviously their hit. I've seen the people dancing to it. Instead they come out with like the most metal thing that they can. Like this was poor leadership from both the band members and the management to allow this to happen. They should have came out, led with the hit for a group of people that have never heard them before.
And also a terrifying indoor pyro setup. That does not work out well, and it looked like it was
never does.
Be a near problem here, to say the least.
No, this was super fun. I had a great time, and Jerry Lynn Fan showing you that over here is being the randomizer. You can request us to watch what you want. It can be apparently a movie as well, and we will watch that.
We should have put a tier where if you're going to request a movie, it costs a little bit more. I feel like Jerry Lynn Fan, I'm so happy you support us, but I feel like you maybe should have had to pay a little bit more to get me to watch a movie, but it is what it is. I'll accept it.
No, we all learned together that you don't like movies. I think this was not well established going in.
It's almost as much of a thing you don't talk about as a human being as being a wrestling fan. Like, what are the things that you want to make the most difficult for you at parties or gatherings? You say, I spend a lot of my life watching pro wrestling, or I don't like movies. I don't know which one of those goes over more like a lead balloon.
All right, so if you want to be the randomizer, don't forget you can bump yourself up to the next tier up. Send us a request. As long as it's over 10 years old, the answer is yes, we will watch it. And then you can bump yourself back down, continue to get all the great bonus content. And with that, we're going to wrap it up. Adam, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Jerry Lynn Fan. As much as I joke around very seriously about not liking movies, I do like the fact that yet again we had something on this podcast that if I lived for 10,000 more years, I never would have found the time, made the decision to watch this. But because this podcast exists and because you are a patron, a supporter, an intentionalizer of this show, I watched this, I saw it, and it's another blind spot that I can scratch off my list and have a good time talking about it with you, Jeremy.
Thanks again, everyone, for listening, and we'll talk to you again next time.